Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. The Cleveland Cavaliers get back on track with a national TV blowout win over the New York Knicks. Always fun to beat the Knicks. Always fun to see this team closer to full strength. And it's always fun to see my co-host Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. I feel like I had a hard time processing that game, and that's where I kind of want to start the podcast, because normally after a kind of a bona fide win like this against a team that you want to at the very least be in the same weight class of, if not better than, certainly a team that's ahead of you in the standings. You win by double digits at home. You put the game away with 5-6 minutes left. I feel like normally I have more takeaways, and I just feel like I'm kind of getting to know this team, and it's making it harder for me to kind of analyze, to not just like obviously on a play-by-play basis. I feel like I can analyze what's going on, but like pulling out these macro trends is really hard to do, because this isn't the same, the old reliable set of rotations we're used to. We've got 3 new bodies to learn. We've got guys kind of figuring out their place in new roles. We've got Evan Mobley coming back on a minutes restriction and working his way back. And as a result, I just feel like it almost feels like the first couple games of the season to me, where I'm sitting here trying to figure out exactly what I'm watching, as opposed to like thinking about how this would play out in a playoff series or whatever it may be. And I'm curious if you're feeling the same way at all.
I definitely feel the same way. I kind of feel like a little bit that first year where we ended up playing the Knicks in the playoffs, and every single regular season matchup was just a little bit weird, and we felt like you couldn't take a lot away from those games. I kind of feel that same way with the season series against the Knicks right now that it's over after 3 games. The first game, the Cavs obviously were very shorthanded in that one. They barely lost that game. Opening night of the season, you can't take anything away from that. Christmas Day, the Cavs outplay them for the majority of the game. Obviously, there's some funky calls. The offense falls apart. I think that was the biggest issue more than anything, was the offense falling apart. Mitchell Robinson gets some rebounds late, and you lose a close one in that one. And then this is a game where I don't think the Cavs played particularly well. Like, I think Donovan Mitchell obviously had a very, very inefficient game. Wasn't a big game from James Harden. Evan Mobley's still getting his sea legs. I think he started to find a little bit of a rhythm later in the game. So I think that's a positive sign. But even from the Knicks standpoint, this was an outlier shooting game for them, going 10 of 37 from 3, 27%. Like, they're not going to shoot that poorly, even though you got Josh Hart to take, 8 3-pointers and go 2 of 8. That's a win. You're funneling the shots to the right shooters. But even if you remove that from the sample size, it only bumps up that percentage to 28%, right? Like, it's not really moving the needle. They didn't shoot well from the free throw line either. But like in a game where neither team played well, I think it's a good sign that the Cavs won by a very comfortable margin. I think it's a good sign that the Knicks made a comeback push and the Cavs didn't fold, right? Like they responded well and got the buckets they needed to, even though it wasn't a great Evan Mobley game. As I said, he played better as the game progressed. Jaylen Tyson, I think, found a little bit of a rhythm later in the game as well. There's a lot of really encouraging signs, but I'm with you. I don't think that this is a game that you can, if these teams meet in the playoffs, I don't think there's a lot we saw in this game that would indicate which way that series is going to go, at least from a schematic standpoint.
Yeah, here's one thing to pivot into like something a little more tangible.
Yeah.
I felt on opening night of this season, when you had you had Brunson just put Tyson in hell, rack up a bunch of fouls early on. There's no Okoro anymore, and I just was like, man, this personnel, I don't know if we've got guys to throw at the Jalen Brunsons of the world with this roster construction. Like, we got guys who can hang, but like, do we have guys who can disrupt and can mess him up? And like, between the way Dean guarded him, which I thought Dean's never guarded Brunson better in this game, the way that Dennis Schroeder was just going chest to freaking chest with him and playing really physical, really pissing him off, really instigating. You could see he was getting a little chippy. And then Keon Ellis, who showed out really, really well on that end of the floor. It feels like they've just got a few more cards to play against the shifty guards of the world.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And, you know, if you look at the tracking data coming into this game, Jalen Brunson was 0 of 11 versus Dean Wade coming into this game, right? Like, Dean has done a really, really good job on Brunson. And I thought, you know, understanding how difficult that assignment is, like, I think it's significant that he goes out there, he doesn't foul him, he uses his body really well. He switched onto, you know, OG on some possessions. He really kind of showed off his defensive versatility in this game, and I really commend the job that he did. But you're right, like, it's nice to have a variety of options. I even thought there were some possessions where James did a good job on him as well. Whether it was, okay, you know, we're not using this as a primary cover, but he switched on to him, kind of recognizes what types of tricks would I use if I was in this position and didn't fall for them. But yeah, like, Keon Ellis was a pest, and Dennis, you know, I don't want to make the Dennis the Menace pun, but he was absolutely a menace. Like, I think this was one of those games
when he slammed the ball off of Josh Hart to save it going out of bounds. There's just a little extra nastiness on that, let's just say.
Right. And this, like, the stats don't jump out. It doesn't jump out for Keon. Like, if you look at his box score and you didn't watch the game and you're listening to us say that he had a big impact on this game, you're going to think we're crazy. But he had an impact in his minutes. Dennis, 3 points, 5 assists, 2 steals. Like, that doesn't really jump out, but you can just tell that this is a guy that gets under their skin. He has that reputation of being a Knicks killer, or someone that plays really well against them. He agitates, and it's fun to have one of those guys on our side, right? Like, it's one thing to kind of win the statistical battle of, hey, we executed better. You know, in this game, we got more offensive rebounds than the Knicks, 13 to 11. You know, we did what we needed to do. We converted more threes and all that stuff. It's fun to win those categories, but it's even more fun when you just have that agitator that is getting them out of the rhythm, out of their game, and frustrating them, because this is a Knicks team that can get a little bit rattled, right? Like, I talked about the stuff like the 3-point shooting and the free throw shooting that maybe isn't sustainable. There were some unforced errors too, right? Like, just drop passes and kind of weird turnovers that they had early in this game. I don't expect that to always be the case, but I think some of the turnovers and mistakes that you saw later in the game was them getting frustrated. That was them getting rattled. That was them getting sped up. And that's the sort of thing that I think someone like Dennis Schroeder can help bring out of this team.
Yeah, and these were benefits. I mean, I thought, for what it's worth, I thought this Cavs team matched up really, really well against this Knicks team last year. And I think if we had come healthy into a series with them, I would have been really surprised if we didn't really show something. You know, I just think the Towns thing is really hard for them for this matchup, especially. I mean, like, you know, your mileage may vary on how you feel about Karl Anthony Towns, but no matter how you feel, like, Jared Allen and Evan Mobley are like the perfect bigs to match up with him, because they're going to make him move his feet in the pick and roll and off the dribble. And then on the other end, they're able to move with him, and they're able to close out and bring length to a closeout. And like, that just makes it really, really hard for him. And then, like, you know, I think about, like, you know, that OKC matchup where we've seen Dort really challenge Donovan, and that's a hard matchup for Donovan. We've seen Chet show out in, you know, a meaningful way and make Evan's life hard. I kind of feel like we can do that to the Knicks, where we, you know, and if you can neutralize one or two of the Knicks' best guys on what is inherently a very top-heavy team that gave a lot of resources to build the top 5 guys they have, that just gets really hard for them really fast.
And this was a game where Karl Anthony Towns was pretty effective offensively, right? Like it took him a while to even get into foul trouble, which is abnormal for him. Like this is as much as the Knicks didn't have a lot of kind of high end outcomes in this game, that was one of the things that actually broke their way. Like, I don't know if you can expect Cat to play a whole lot better because he traditionally hasn't played a whole lot better, right? And I think as Evan Mobley gets healthier and more comfortable and back into game shape, the type of job that he does on Cat historically is, significant. He takes him out of the rhythm. So I just think that it's a really, really tough matchup. And for the Knicks in particular, right? Like one of their big Achilles heel is how do they defend the pick and roll? How do they defend in space? And I don't think the Cavs necessarily even did a tremendous job on, picking at Jalen Brunson and targeting him, right? Like that's one of the trade-offs with Dean Wade is I think he does as good of a job as anybody defending Jalen Brunson, but it does give Jalen Brunson somewhere that he can hide on the defensive end.
Though Dean shot very well tonight, which helps a lot to make that palatable.
I was literally about to say, what have we talked about is the big swing skill set for Dean Wade if he's going to be starting. He needs to go out there and make the shots. And I thought not only did he do a very good job of making those shots, I also thought his cutting was very good. He got some timely offensive rebounds. Some, there was the one where I thought he could have converted it and a layup that he missed. But I like the process and I care more about that process than the result, right? And I think in a lineup where spacing is going to be a little bit compromised just because of the way that defense is treat him, it's really, really important that he is both a willing shooter and, converting those shots. But there were some where a defender was closing out on him. Sometimes it was
and
a shorter.
He has to take them. He just does.
And he still took those shots. I thought that was incredibly significant. That's the way that Dean needs to play in order for this to work, right? We've talked about the compromises of you making that lineup decision. The route for that to work is Dean to be a confident shooter.
Yeah, I'm very happy with 5 3-point attempts in 25 minutes. I think that's just about the sweet spot. Obviously, he's still getting, I think, some excess minutes at the 5. That was again the Cavs' second most played lineup was Dean at the 5. They played 6 minutes with that group. But yeah, I mean the jumper, the volume has to be there. He goes 0 of 1 against OKC, and the lineup looks really rough. And obviously, that's not because of Dean. There were a billion reasons why those minutes went very bad. But like it is, I think, somewhat symptomatic. And if he's not able to be that pressure release valve, then it gets really, really challenging for that lineup to have space. But also, Evan hit a couple long jumpers, 1.5 threes, let's say, since one of them got taken off the board. But that stuff really matters too.
Spiritually, that other one was a 3 for sure. And I thought, it was an interesting rotation decision too, that when the first substitution pattern was made, both bigs were left out there, right? Like we went 2 bigs with just Harden for about 2 or 3 minutes. And I think some of that was just game situation as well. Like I believe Jaylen Tyson went to the scorer's table a little earlier than that. So I don't know how long Kenny was planning on sticking with that. But when you go single guard too big in a game where Mobley's on a minutes restriction, it kind of necessitates Dean playing at the 5, right? Like it's harder to kind of have that stagger. So again, that goes to your point of we're not going to get a true feel for what this rotation is going to be for a while. It's going to be a feeling out process here.
Yeah, I did think it was interesting that Kenny went with the 2 in the first sub instead of the 3. Like that's a material change. Like that's kind of been the Cavs thing for like in the Kenny era. I feel like is you start the game off and 3 guys come out, 3 guys come in, and you basically take 2 of Evan. Evan and Donovan have been the 2 that have come off when the team's like even remotely healthy this year just to start the first quarter and that first sub pattern. The fact that it was, Jaylen came just a little bit later, like a minute or 2 later. I don't know. It just kind of feels like Kenny's kind of just reading the room a bit and feeling things out.
Do you think part of that might have been experimenting with what happens when they put Mitchell Robinson out here? Because the first kind of Dean at the 5 minutes were with Mitchell Robinson. What do you think? Maybe it was experimenting with what does going 5 out and seeing how Mitrov does in space defensively. Like, can we play him off the floor? Do you think maybe that was something that they were
It's hard
tactically
to.
taking a look at?
I don't know, man. It's just so hard to figure it out right now because the coaching staff is clearly learning how to coach this roster in real time.
Right.
And so
So
like
maybe you're not looking at matchup
my
specific stuff.
I lean towards I'm not thinking about matchups if I'm Kenny right now. Like
Yeah.
sure, like in a very premium setting, maybe I'm looking to match minutes, like in a like a must win or something like that. But I think right now it's just him kind of tooling around and figuring out the right times to bring in the right players. Like we saw Jaylen play next to Dean in this game at the 3 with I want to say it was Evan, but I can't remember who was the 5. But
I
like
believe you're right.
but like the last couple games, it's been like Jalen's just been exclusively the backup power forward. So I feel like we're getting a little bit of a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of dabbling from in small ways within the rotation. But because Jaylen, I mean, he had a great game. He played 27 minutes after not cracking 20 the last 2 games. But you do kind of see Kenny just kind of figuring out where to use these guys.
Yeah, Jaylen was third on the team in field goal attempts in this game. Obviously, some of that is Jared and Evan got to the free throw line more frequently, so kind of true attempts. He might not be third, but fourth in minutes as well. And I thought he did a really good job playing off ball. There were some timely cuts. You saw him get used as the roller. The floaters were there. I liked his physicality too, fighting for rebounds on both ends. There was a couple of those that jumped out to me. I still would.
I think it's fair to say, and sorry, I'll let you get to the Jaylen point, but I think it's fair to say, like, if we out offensive rebound the Knicks, we really need to be winning the game.
Yeah,
and we did. We had 13 to their 11.
Yeah, and I still ultimately would like to see Jaylen maintain some ball handling reps. Like
Same.
That's a priority to me. Like maybe there's an understanding of, hey, you're going to have to play some 4. Maybe it's a little less 4 when Mobley's off his minutes restriction. But I do think that's a really, really important thing because I think you're going to need that supplemental playmaking from the wing. Like whether it's Jaylen, whether it's Max Strus, when he comes back and if he's able to play like himself, I think it's important. I just think that is a part of this offense that needs to be present.
Can't go away.
And I also think it's just a very important part for his development because I think when Jaylen gets some of those reps, he feels just a little bit more comfortable and you see the contributions in other areas, right? Like I think it's almost like how you can't judge Jared Allen's activity on the boards and overall defensively in a vacuum. We know that he plays better when you get him a few touches on the offensive end, right? When he hasn't gone a full quarter without touching the ball. I think it's the same thing for Jaylen. I think you're going to see him play hard and do all this stuff off ball that he did really well in this game. If he also gets to touch the ball a little bit when he's playing as a small forward, right? And you correctly pointed out, he did get some of those opportunities and he got some of those reps today. I like him attacking destabilized defenses. I like the decisions he makes in those spots. And I just want it to continue to be a wrinkle within this offense.
I think there's there's a little mental element of like when you're playing against a Donovan and a Harden backcourt, there is a certain like, oh, phew, we got the ball out of their hands, like sigh that the defense takes. Because we've seen this against teams like OKC for us, where it's like you almost see the defense kind of let up for a second. And it's like, wait, this guy's attacking now? Like, there's this there's kind of this avalanche effect that I think happens to like the psyche of a team defense when other players are also getting downhill and making you guard and making you make decisions when you're kind of expecting to maybe get a little bit of a break or for it to be a little easier. Like, and it leads to breakdowns. Like even on the layup that Jaylen kind of smoked off the backboard, Dean is completely unboxed out for a putback. So it's like that's why I like the pressure coming because it just generates good things for everyone, including our star players who can get who can get like easy drive and kicks. Like James Harden is getting a ton of catch and shoot threes right now, which
Yeah.
is really, really nice, and he's hitting every single one, which is which is very, very helpful. But like I think having attacks come from places the defense isn't ready for every time, it's just like, I mean, how many times have we seen that be the thing that kills the Cavs? Is the defense just kind of knowing where the attack's coming?
Yeah, I think it's very clear that there is a higher ceiling for this group, right? Like I think there's a lot of meat on the bone here for this team to continue to pick at, where like weaponizing Jaylen Tyson fully, getting Evan Mobley back on track, continuing to find that rhythm with James Harden. Like I think getting everybody organized and figuring out what the best possible mix is, how much of that they're able to accomplish in the last third of the season is going to determine how high the ceiling is for this group. Because I think if this group started the season in October, I would have like a ton of excited energy over what this can be if they had a full season to work at this. It is going to be a crash course. There is a lot of pressure on them. Luckily, there are a lot of games still left, but it's going to take some time to figure out what that perfect balance is and get everything organized. And sometimes you just need tools to help you get organized, Carter. And that's where Zoom Workplace comes in, because teams move fastest when everyone's in sync. Zoom Workplace keeps meetings, chats, documents, and more together so your work flows like a perfect play. Keep work moving and zoom ahead with Zoom Workplace. One thing I wanted to hit on, just because you mentioned Harden getting those catch and shoot threes, I do think that there is a bit of an adjustment period for him in regards to that, because with the Clippers, he was kind of the only ball handler, right? Like there was not a lot of
Kawhi
help there.
is not like he is a play finisher. He's not a big assist guy.
Right. He all the responsibility was on Harden. So there wasn't a lot of situations where he was getting these catch and shoots. And I think you felt that in a couple of those early possession games or possessions early in the game, where there was the one where he was trying to force feed Mobley forever, and Evan kicked it out to him, and he had a wide open three above the break. But he just kind of stood there with the ball, was trying to force feed him, and then eventually was a turnover. And there was a second one where it swung to him in the corner. Mikal Bridges ended up poking it out of his hands, but he could have gone up and taken that shot right away. And I think that's going to be an adjustment for him, because James has never really been on the receiving end of that very frequently. Like even playing in Brooklyn, where that's the closest thing that he had to a really dynamic guard in Kyrie, he didn't have that. The chemistry with Chris Paul, for a variety of different reasons, it did not work, right? Like the maturity that Harden has shown in his game, the way that he's changed his game since he's left Houston, he was not at that point to play with a point guard that was going to get him those easier looks.
Yeah, I did feel like, kind of a weird game for James. Like not an impressive box score, like 20 on 18 doesn't really blow you away. 4 assists to 3 turnovers doesn't really blow you away. 2 rebounds doesn't blow you away. But I do feel like you just really feel how he's guarded.
Yeah.
And his ability to, when he did get Brunson switched on him, just to blow by him, using his physicality. I think a thing I'm learning about Harden, as a fan and watching him every game, as opposed to 4 or 5 times a year against the Cavs, and 4 or 5 times a year on national TV. Outside of that, is that sometimes you forget you can conflate like the slowness of the game and the way he wants to, frankly, the shortcuts sometimes you'll see him take on the defensive end, swiping at the ball, which, man, thank goodness his hands are fast. But
and the wingspan is long.
But you kind of associate some of those shortcuts sometimes with like not wanting to play nasty, and he's just big and strong, man. And when he's got Brunson on his hip, I want to be really careful about it, just like the forever comparison to Darius Garland, because like different players, and like it's just not super productive. But it is interesting, like where Darius gets to switch up Brunson, he's gonna have to score with his craft and his burst and all this stuff. James can just be bigger and can just bump a small guard out of the way, and there is a difference in what the team has when you can do that. Like there will be matchups where you'd rather have the speed and the burst, But like in a matchup like this, it's just kind of nice to know that like Brunson, who's one kind of defensive trait that you can really count on, is that he's pretty strong for his size. He's not strong enough in that matchup. And so when you're able to get that switch consistently, it really unlocks a lot for you.
Yeah, like it's one of the primary differences even in how James and Brunson initiate contact, right? Like Jaylen is going to hit the floor 27 times a game, right? Like 13 will come on defense, 14 will come on offense, and that's usually where the whistle comes. James historically is, hey, you put your arm in, I'm kind of ripping through you, or I'm getting to the free throw line, but you're ending up on the ground and I'm still on my 2 feet, right? Like there is a physicality with how he plays on every single possession. And I think that is something that we've needed. Now, I do have a little bit of space to be whiny for a second.
You absolutely do, because if you weren't, I was going to be.
Okay, because this is the second game now that he's played with the Cavs where he has not got a shooting foul. That Kings game, he did not get a shooting foul though the whole game. Got to shoot 4 free throws at the end because of intentional fouls, so that kind of masked it. But our buddy Spencer Davies pointed out that this is just the 9th time since 2011 he's had a game with no free throws, and it very well could have been the 10th. It could have been 20% in like his 6 games with the Cavs that he hasn't got to the free throw line. And I'm sure some of this is small sample size. I think some of it is, the usage is a little bit different in Cleveland. We have to be fair to some extent, but also in this game where you're getting clear replays where even the broadcast team is like, oh, well, that's a blatant foul. Or, he's driving on Karl Anthony Towns, whose entire bit is he fouls on every possession. And James's entire career has been drawing fouls on every possession, and he's not getting those calls. It's just very frustrating, right? Because we've been told year after year that free throw drawing is a skill. And the reason that our guys don't get to the line is because they don't have the skill to draw free throws. And there's just always that small market paranoia that it's the name on the front of the jersey outweighing the back. And I hope that this corrects itself. I think my gut instinct is still that this is small sample size. I think there was a lot of physicality that was being allowed in this game in general, and with James not going to the ground, it wasn't going to get rewarded the same way that some of the Brunson stuff got rewarded. But it is at least a trend to keep an eye on.
Funny enough, Donovan Mitchell seems to be the one who's getting to the line now. It's like he just absorbed the power. So I guess if Donnie's going to get, he went to the line 13 times against the Hornets, 14 against the Knicks, only 3. I believe he and Harden combined for 5 free throw attempts against the Thunder, because that tracks. Donovan said it best. I don't need to say anymore. But yeah, I think like ultimately the nice thing is when I was looking at Harden's like efficiency stats, when I was looking at him after the trade reports started bubbling up, I'm like, is he still gonna be able to be helpful if he's not getting to the line? Like how reliant, and like not that I was sure of the answer. I was just asking the question as someone gets a little older. He's not like his effective field goal percentage is rarely crazy high.
Yeah.
So it's like, are we gonna feel okay if we're having nights like tonight? And like generally, I was happy every second James was out on the floor tonight. I wanted him out more, just because of the way he's able to get guys going. Jared Allen puts up another 19 points on 8 field goal attempts, and 10 boards, and James doesn't get a lot of assists to credit that, but like I think was definitely a part of, I just think there's an inherent comfort there, and I would guess that James had a lot of hockey assists and a lot of potential assists in this game, and he just kind of keeps the offense moving. There's like this metronomic quality to the way he runs an offense that makes things feel like on time and on target. Even when he's not doing the thing he's kind of most famous for on offense, which is getting to the line.
Is that maybe one of our takeaways, right? Like we talked at the start of this podcast about how, what do we actually take away from this game? What can we kind of assign some weight to? I think one of my takeaways of the new additions for the Cavs is how they can have an impact without doing kind of like what we expected them to do necessarily, or maybe that's not the right way to phrase it, but without like that swing variable being there, right? Like, because when we think back to like Isaac Okoro as an example, if he wasn't hitting those 3-point shots, what he did defensively wasn't really having an impact. Keon Ellis, in a game where he wasn't really hitting a lot of shots, went out and had a big impact. Not that he's been shooting poorly in Cleveland, but he just has like a consistent impact when he's out there. James we're now seeing a more efficient version, at least from an effective field goal standpoint, without getting to the line because of the situation that he's put in. And I think you also just see the impact he has in terms of, the things we mentioned, like applying the physicality, the way that he keeps the ball moving, and just kind of the energy and the coach on the floor that he is. And Dennis Schroeder in a game where he only had 3 points, just all the little stuff, just picking away, getting under your skin, right? Like, I think we're seeing with all three of these additions that they have an impact on the game that goes beyond the box score and beyond what you would traditionally say is like the main thing that they'd be bringing to the table.
Yeah, I mean, with Keon especially, I thought it was going to be the Isaac Okoro show with maybe a bit more blocks and steals, where I was like, hey, all this stuff's great. Are you making your shots?
Yeah.
You know, like that's kind of what I thought the experience was going to be. And it really hasn't been the case. Like, I feel like I haven't been sitting, like, I guess there's probably a little part of me that's like waiting for the 5 3-point make game from Keon where it just feels insane because he has some of those on his resume.
Yeah.
But I'm not sitting here watching being like, oh man, he's got to start making some threes. Like, and I think it goes to show just how impactful he's able to be, both in transition, obviously the chaos plays, but just, it's not just the chaos plays, it's just how much ground he covers on defense. Like,
it's unbelievable.
Stymies a drive, recovers out to a closeout, rotates over to the corner when his closeout gets attacked. Like, he's just constantly in motion. The arms are just everywhere. The hands are everywhere. It's just deflection city. And I don't feel like he or Dennis needs to be great to feel great. And like, that is a great spot to be for your role players, because when they are great, it's another level.
Well, I think that's also something that's been missing from the Cavs, when it comes to the postseason, right? We've talked about how sometimes the role players are kind of slotted into just the one role, right? Like, you are here to do one task, and if you're not doing it, you're not bringing anything to the table. I think that
we're screwed, by the way.
Yeah, I think that's improved over the years. I think Max is someone where, outside of some extreme outlier poor shooting games, he finds ways to go out there and make a difference, right? He makes an impact in a variety of different ways. And I think some of the role guys that are still here have rounded that out as well. Like, I think Sam Merrill has rounded out his game to where he has more of an impact. Like, I felt his gravity, even though, he didn't hit any of his shots tonight. I still feel like Sam isn't a liability out there, right? Like, we've talked about the growth he's done on defense. I think the connective playmaking and everything he brings to the table, I think he has more of an impact. I think Dean Wade, to his credit, has rounded out. Maybe not the massive leaps that we wanted to see, but I do think that he's become a better cutter. I do think that on the defensive end, like 3 years ago, he would have picked up 5 fouls on Jalen Brunson pretty quickly. I recall that from some of those matchups, right? Anytime he was guarding a guard, he would use his hands too much. I think he's rounded out his game a fair amount as well. So I think this group is kind of growing together, but it's nice to bring in 3 guys that already have that kind of built into the DNA, right? Like, Dennis Schroeder and James Harden have a lot of experience, right? Like, I think that comes from experience more than anything. And Keon is just one of those kind of glue guys that is able to go out there and make a difference with his energy, regardless of how, the uncontrollables are going, right? Because ultimately all you can do when you get a good shot is take the good shot and hope that you convert it. He does all the other little things at such a consistent level that he's already really endeared himself to me. Like I'm very, very happy that he is a role player on this team.
Yeah, it's been really, really fun seeing these guys kind of find their way. And yeah, I have so much more to learn about this team. And then obviously Max is just looming, right? Like,
yeah.
Kenny said he took some contact with the coaches in his pregame availability.
That got me excited.
And like, I was thinking about it, like the best version of Max might still be our best role player on the roster, like, I mean, like that's a Coke or Pepsi taste at this point because this team's a lot deeper and a lot different than it once was. But like, it's pretty crazy to think that like, we could have a new fifth best player if he comes back healthy.
Can I be a bit of a brat?
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
We're saying the best version of Max, are we weighing that against the best version of everybody else on the team?
No,
because I think
I'm just saying when Max is in form, if Max is in form, because it's just rare to have every role player in form every night. Like I think Tyson's best is our best role player.
That was going to
but
be
I think it's
point.
unlikely. Like I think it's more likely that Max is hovering near his best within the context of this team if he's healthy. If he's healthy and right, obviously that's I'm not counting on that. Just given what a hard journey it's been back to the court for him. But again, just like what a luxury to add a Max Strus to a roster that's won 15 of their last 18.
Something crazy like that, and still a lot of games left. I know you and I both have that game against Detroit on Friday circled.
Absolutely.
Very, very excited to see that one as kind of the next test. But we got the unfortunate thing. I wish we had some of these easier games first, and then these tests were a little later in the season, because the end of the schedule is very, very soft for the Cavs, and it's soft for a long, long time. I would like to have more things figured out, but I do think it's a very, very encouraging sign that when you're in this feeling out process, you can play a red hot Knicks team that isn't making any major changes, that isn't integrating any new pieces. They've been playing really, really good basketball for a while now, and you look pretty comfortable defensively. I thought this was a better defensive performance for the Cavs than we've seen from them recently, and get a comfortable win. I think that is an incredibly encouraging sign for how high the floor is for this group as we are kind of experimenting with where this ceiling is going to end up.
Absolutely, brother. Fun team. Fun to learn in real time.
And it's even more fun to beat the Knicks. Big thanks to everyone that tuned in live. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. And if you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chase Down's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of the video to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.